Speaking to reporters outside of the papal residence in Castel Gandolfo, Pope Leo XIV was asked about the president's proposed peace plan for the war in Ukraine. Take a listen.
I'd rather not comment on that. I haven't read the whole thing. I think, unfortunately, some of parts of it that I have seen make a huge change in what was for many, many years a true alliance between Europe and the United States. The remarks that are made about Europe, also in interviews recently, I think are trying to break apart what I think needs to be a very important alliance today and in the future. So it's a program that President Trump and his advisors put together. He's the President of the United States, has a right to do that. It has a number of things in it that I think, while perhaps many people in the United States would be in agreement, I think many others would see things in a different way.
We'd like to bring on EWTN Senior Vatican Correspondent Frank Rocca for more. Frank, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, great to be here.
So the Pope said, I would rather not comment on that. I haven't read the whole thing. Then he continued to say, in his opinion, President Trump's comments are trying to break up the alliance between the U.S. and Europe. What do you make of what he said?
Well, I think there are a couple of interesting points. One is that we know that for a little while he was hesitant to talk about U.S. politics. He even said once to the reporters outside Castel Gandolfo, he said, I don't want to talk about U.S. politics or U.S. policy. But then he's decided that he will. And he's criticized the Trump administration about the deportations of migrants, about the aggression toward Venezuela, and now about the Ukraine peace plan and the attitude toward Europe. So he's quite willing to do that. So that's interesting. The other thing I think that's interesting in this particular case is that it's a real contrast with Pope Francis. Pope Francis was not a great enthusiast for the transatlantic alliance or NATO, and especially in regard to Ukraine. Remember, he said more than once, he said, well, you know, it could be that NATO was barking at the gates of Russia. In other words, the NATO expansion had actually provoked Russia to launch the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And of course, Pope Francis was very much for a peace settlement at almost any cost. He told the Ukrainians to wave the white flag. He was not seen as very pro-Ukraine. Pope Leo is more so. He had made some remarks before he was Pope, and now we see that it's interesting that he's an enthusiast for the transatlantic alliance and by implication NATO.
As you just highlighted, Pope Francis was very outspoken on world politics, in which he received both praise and criticism. What kind of tone has Pope Leo set?
Well, Pope Leo up till now has had a remarkable ability to weigh in on very delicate subjects without causing an explosion. He has a kind of special touch that he seems to calm things down and defuse situations more often than inflame them. So that's very different from Francis, who was very provocative and very stimulating, and that was great for journalists. But Pope Leo is a little more calm, and so he seems to be able to wade into these things with great deliberation.
And how might the Pope's comments be received in Europe and across the Atlantic here in the U.S.?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, whether the Trump administration will listen to the Pope and say, I don't know. I think obviously people who agree with him will take those words to heart. And it's been a while since, and in fact, it's a novelty. Again, we're seeing the American side of Leo, and we can infer this a little bit. But the Vatican has always been in favor of European integration, and they've always supported the EU, the European Union, at least in principle. But this particular enthusiasm for the alliance between the United States and Europe, I guess John Paul, because of his anti-communism and his concern about the Soviet Union, probably had sympathies like that. But this is not something to be taken for granted at the Vatican.
Frank Rocca, thanks so much.
Thank you.